So, the Plastic Leviathan is finally on sale, this one being the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought with claw and drill weapons. So this one doesn't contain any range weapons, but it does have options for the Siege Claw or the Siege Drills, or both. Now, I've already built mine, and I wanted to tell you about my experiences about how to magnetize it, because I wanted mine to be fully magnetizable, so when I can take range weapons when they do come out in plastic, I can swap between. So, is the new Plastic Leviathan magnetizable? Well, yes. But actually, no. I'll tell you why very soon. But can you magnetize it? Yes, you can, but it's going to be a little bit awkward. But let me explain. This kit comes with 4 sprues. 1 sprue makes up the body, 1 sprue makes up both legs, 1 sprue makes up the shoulders and the optional parts, which is quite nice for this kit. And then 1 sprue makes up the new weapons. So imagine the range weapon kit will look very similar. It'll just come with a range weapon sprue rather than a close combat sprue. It's made up of a bunch of parts, and it builds very similar to the Plastic Contemptor. The Plastic Contemptor and this kit, essentially you build up like the feet, and they're made up of like 3 or 4 parts, and you build up like the shin, and they're made up of 3 or 4 parts as well, and then the top part of the leg, and then the waist, and then you would glue it all together, you know? It kind of like builds sections, so it's fully posable, which is really nice. Obviously the feet, the shin, the leg, and then the waist or the crotch piece is all different parts, and they're all posable between each other, so it makes it very, very posable and very, very nice. It just makes it a lot of parts. It's quite an intensive kit. I don't know if they're doing this because it has to be, because they're trying to match the resin equivalent, or they're doing it to make it more complex because Heresy has always been the expert modelers game, but I don't know. We'll see. What do you think? But we do get a multitude of options before we even get to the weapons. The crotch plate comes with 3 different options. You have one with the Eye of Horus, you have a plain one, and you have one with like a more regal one. The chest plate as well comes with 3 different chest plates. You have one with like a banner, you have one with like a skull and some arrows, and then you have one that's plain as well. And also the trim, which has been advertised on the Siege Dreadnought, these are all optional. So these parts are optional on the front, and so is the crown at the top, and you can have a more plain one, which is quite nice to have those options in there. What I will say, when you do come to build your Leviathan, it tells you to glue the legs together and to the crotch, and then build the body, but I would recommend against this. What I would do is build all of each section individually, build the feet separately, the shin separately, and everything, and then the body separately. And then when you want to put it together, I would glue it all together at the same time and pose it all at the same time. The advantages of a Plastic Leviathan over a resin Leviathan, or even plastic models to resin models, is that you're building with plastic glue, which starts a chemical reaction, but it isn't instant like super glue is. So what you can do is put glue in all the sections and shove them all together, and then they'll start reacting, so they'll start to hold, but you can move them for a short time whilst it starts to dry. Rather than building it in sections and then sticking all the sections together, you can actually put it all together at once, hold it all in place, and then pose it really easily, and then let it dry, which allowed me to get this quite funky pose where it looks like he's running or barging through something. If you want to do this in resin, you'd have to plan 4 steps ahead, because every time you glue something, it's instant, so you'd have to make sure it's all going to be able to fit properly, which I've done before and it's not worked, so I've had to take it back apart. But while you are building, you can start looking at the options. So you have the options of the chest weapons, or the nipple guns as people call them. You have options of either heavy flamers or Volkite. Now these are really, really easy to magnetize because they already come with holes, which is super great. So the weapons come with 3x1mm holes, which are perfect for 3x1mm neodymium magnets, you know. And the chest has holes in there as well, but that's a little bit deeper at 2mm, so I put 2 magnets in there. So you can put 3x2mm magnets into the chest, and then 3x1mm magnets into the weapons, and then they just slot right in. With the flamers, they come with like little tanks at the back on both sides, and what I've done is I've shaved them down on the same side as the magnets, so they can essentially like slide in. You might not need to, you might be able to leave it on and then slot them in from the bottom, but I wasn't so sure when I was building it, so I took them off preemptively, and it just allows me just to slide the weapons in, so I can pull them out and then slide them back in, which is quite nice. So that's the first magnetizing option. Then we've got the Phosphex launcher on top, so I've magnetized this as well. Now, initially, I tried to put a magnet underneath the carapace on top, and then a magnet into the launcher. So a 3x1mm magnet in there, and then a 6x2mm magnet in the carapace. I realized it wasn't really holding that well. It held it in place, but it was very wobbly. So every time I moved it, you could see it was moving around. And obviously, you don't really want that when you're gaming and when you're transporting. You don't want to, like chuck it into your case and then lose the Phosphex launcher because it fell off as you were putting it down into your case. So what I did do is the unthinkable. I actually drilled the 3x1mm 4mm hole, well 3mm hole here in the top, and I've actually left the magnet sticking out of the top. Now, it's quite easy to see right now, but once it's painted, you're probably not going to be able to see it. And what I could do is use some sprue glue over the top and smooth it out just so it's even harder to see. But I'm not too fussed because it's on the top and it's out the way. You can even put you can even magnetize a little banner there if you wanted to. Put a little banner on top instead. But what you can do then is put a 3x1mm magnet into the back as well. So you have one in the back will do most of the work and hold the thing in place, and then the front one, which we already put in, will stop it sliding around because it could move left to right if not. And then finally, the main one is the weapons, and this is where it gets a little bit funky because you have the option of building 2 siege drills, 2 siege claws, or 1 of each. You get all the parts to build any of them. But the problem is you can't build all 4 without magnetizing. But this is where the magnetizing gets a little bit funky. What I have done is I have magnetized the arms at this point, which makes them fully compatible with resin versions of the weapons if you have those. Essentially what you want to do, this comes with like a little peg, and then this comes with like a receptacle to take the peg. So what you can do is you can slice the peg off and then replace it with a magnet so it's flat. And then here the hole is already there, so you can just glue a magnet straight in. And then that magnetizes it nicely to be able to either turn it if you want to, or you can put a ranged weapon on there, or when the new Leviathan with the ranged weapon comes out, I imagine the arm fitting is going to be very similar. And then you can magnetize it between different weapons. So I can, for example, I can swap these weapons over, for example, you know. One of the only problems when you magnetize the weapons like this, it's great because you can swap to ranged weapons or close combat weapons, but the power cables will also need magnetizing if you want to use them. It was fine with resin because the power cables were resin, so you could warm them up and then bend them. But the problem is with the plastic version, probably the only downside to this plastic version is that you get 4 different cables and two of the same and different lengths, and different, like one short one quite long one. You are kind of limited to how you pose due to those cables, and I've actually posed both of mine in a way where the cables no longer fit. No, I'm not too fussed. I don't mind leaving the cables off. If you're going to fight a dreadnought like this, the first thing you do is get some wire cutters and try and go straight through them to stop your arm working, I guess, if you're going to be fighting a Leviathan in person, which I wouldn't recommend. But that is something to be aware of when you are magnetizing, that you'll have to magnetize this and the cable to probably glue it into the claw and then magnetize it to the back. But it might snap into place, it might sit in the right place, but that is something to be aware of. But personally, I'm just going to leave them off. The problem comes is if you want to magnetize the siege drill between the claw, and that's kind of where things are a little bit awkward, because essentially whilst you get 2 arms, which is fine, you also only get 2 of this little receptacle that holds the let's call them fingers because I don't have a better term for it, that holds the fingers, and it has the melter gun in there as well. And the problem is that you only get 2 of those, which means you only have 2, you can only make either essentially 2 of these parts. You get enough drills to make 2 drills, you get enough claws to make 2 claws, but you only get enough to make 2 weapons functional, you know. Now you could magnetize, I've blue tacked these in for now, you could magnetize each finger to each thing and then have a magnet that holds it there, but I don't want to do that because I'm lazy. I've magnetized it enough already, but you could magnetize each individual finger to this little section, which is made up of essentially a bottom plate, a melter gun, and then 3 little armor panels. You could definitely magnetize in, there's enough plastic to drill into there, but I didn't want to have to paint each individual finger. I didn't want to magnetize 12 different fingers, so it'd be like 18 magnets that I'd be playing with, and I didn't want to do that, just because I'm a little bit lazy, and it's quite a lot. Now what I have done is I've magnetized the whole section to the arm. So if I can either make something, I could try and make a copy of this using like a press mold, I could try and 3D print something, or I could try and buy just this little section at the end, and then I can make up 2 more drills, 2 more claws, for example, or any of whichever ones I don't use, and then they can magnetize straight into there because I put magnets in the back of the hands. You could magnetize each finger to this section. It would just be a lot of work, and I just want to warn people of that they can, but also probably don't want to magnetize 12 fingers and have to paint each individual one. It's a real shame, and I think that really lets the kit down, because if you could magnetize, if it had enough sections to build 4 of these and you could just magnetize the end of the fist, that'd be really, really good, and you'd be able to swap between all 4 weapons. But I guess Games Workshop have chosen not to do that for obvious reasons. You could, why would they do that when you could go out and buy another Leviathan and then have the other 2 options, right? So it's a little bit of a shame. It leaves a little bit of a minor sour taste in my mouth, but I guess with the resin version, you would have to buy each claw independently, so at least I can swap between 2 of them if I wanted to build 1 of each, for example, and I can buy some more. I don't know. It's one of those things. Are you going to be magnetizing your Leviathan? Hopefully this video has been helpful. I'm actually going to be painting this Leviathan on Sunday the 31st of July, so Sunday next week, because it's my anniversary of doing YouTube, so I wanted to do a big celebratory stream. We're going to paint a bunch of Iron Hands for my 30k army, which is on the shelf, so we can do another battle report with them, and I'm going to be giving away loads of prizes, including probably a couple of Leviathans as well. Speaking of which, brand new shirt. An old classic is returning to the store at hellstormwargaming.com. And I think that's about everything. So thank you much for watching. Hope this video was helpful. If you got any other questions about the Leviathan, leave them in the comment down below and I'll try and get back to you. But otherwise, thanks for watching. See you later and catch you next time.